Billy Kelleher, I'm a Fianna Fáil MEP for the constituency of Ireland South. I was just here today to meet with stakeholders that are involved in the marts, in the transport of animals and in the export of animals as well off the island of Ireland, both to the European Union itself and also to third countries. And we were just discussing the issues around the importance of being able to transport animals off the island of Ireland, but also our obligation to ensure that we have the highest welfare standards possible in place. Of course, the European Commission is bringing forward proposals in the October-November period. They're going to publish new recommendations around the issue of animal transport and also the export of animals from the European Union to third countries. And that comes on foot of a recommendation and a report of a committee in the European Parliament some time ago that I sat on myself, where we actually discussed all these particular issues. We published a report and it made its recommendations. We also have to accept, of course, that the transport of animals comes with obligations. We have to ensure that there's the highest standards, but in the meantime, we also have to accept that if we can't move animals off the island, either to the European Union or elsewhere, well, then we will have significant challenges here as well, from the dairy perspective, and also ensuring that we can continue to farm in the way we've been doing.
In your constituency, is there a concern among dairy farmers for the calf markets next year, and how sure can we be that the export market to mainland Europe will remain open?
Well, yes, there is concerns, clearly. I mean, when the Commission is bringing forward recommendations, we haven't seen those recommendations yet, but, we do know that we all have to do better collectively to ensure the highest welfare standards, the integrity of the animals protected, and also that in the event of there being serious breaches by individuals or by companies, that there is sanction as well. Because at the heart of this is two things: the welfare of the calf and the importance of being able to move the calf and older animals off the island to maintain the dairy industry and how it performs in Ireland.
And what are the views currently in Europe, and I suppose how can we expect to see this playing out?
Well, there's varying views. I mean, that's the democratic place we live in terms of the European Parliament. I mean, from my perspective, I believe we can do two things and they can be compatible. We can transport animals and we can maintain the highest standards possible to protect that animal during transport. And I passionately believe we can do that. And if we do that right, well, then we can continue to move animals to the markets in the European Union, and then we can continue to support the dairy industry here in Ireland. Like calving down cows in February, March, and being unable to move those calves off farms for a prolonged period of time, and not being able to move them off the island as well, would put significant pressure both on the family farm itself, because they would have to retain additional stock, but would also put additional pressure on the entirety of the system, because we would have an awful lot more animals residing on the island. So we do need to be able to protect that particular trade of transport. But again, we must have the highest standards. And not only must we have the highest standards, we must enforce them as well to ensure that there's integrity in the system to protect the welfare of the animal and to protect the industry.
Seamus Gallen, the livestock exporter, has said, and he has mentioned about developing a lairage near Rosslare port. Is this something that you would support, and do you think there is need for this?
Well, we have to look at shortening the journey time in terms of animals that are bought at marts, brought to holding yards, and then moved on to the continent. We have to ensure that we have the highest standards right throughout that process. So anything that shortens the journey time, in other words, the amount of time that animals are on transporters, is something that we should look at. But I would take the best advice from Teagasc, from the Department of Agriculture, and from other stakeholders as well, to see how we can continue to move calves, accepting that we'll have to, increase the standards again, even though we have high welfare standards, but we have to insist on higher ones. We also have to look at the age of the calf transport, the journey time, how long between feeding intervals, access to water, temperature on the transporters, and GPS monitoring, lifetime monitoring, video surveillance. All of these things will have to be part and parcel of the new system, I think, so that we can guarantee the integrity of the entirety of the transportation of the animal.
And what changes can farmers expect to see? I suppose, is there any, I suppose, concrete changes that are set to come into play with regards the movement of calves from Ireland to mainland Europe, or is it still all in discussion?
Well, it's still all in discussion. We still have to wait for the Commission to put forward its proposals. But I mean, in terms of our report and our recommendations, we did talk about increasing the age of the calf from transport. So in other words, the calf would have to be, over a certain age before they could be transported. At the moment, some calves across Europe are being transported too young. We have to accept that. They're coming to marts too young as well. So we do have to look at some of those particular issues to ensure that you have a strong, healthy calf that's of a certain age that can withstand the journey times. So, but there's certain issues that I believe that if we put in place will benefit obviously the animal being transported, but also will allow the system to continue in terms of the transportation of animals.
And I suppose what age is seen as workable, I suppose, for both the farmer perspective and the welfare perspective in Europe for calf movement?
Well, I mean, without putting a definitive figure on it, but I mean, certainly, like you're looking at 28 days plus would be I think where they will be looking at it, based on the report and the recommendations out of the committee I sat on, and just looking at the welfare issue as well. I mean, young calves, very young calves being presented at marts in trucks and transported for a prolonged period of time, is not right. So we have to look at that, and certainly we'll take our guidance from stakeholders, from science, and from advisory bodies, and from the broader industry as well.